What's up, y'all? Welcome in to another solo edition of SSPN Postgame. I hope you guys enjoyed the SSPN recaps that Ethan and I did yesterday. Definitely go check that out if you want a full debrief of the losing streak that the Spurs are still on tonight. But I'm in a much better mood in comparison to Monday. I'm sure a lot of you guys are as well. I'm sure there are a lot of people that are still angry with all of the losses, and it is tough. But as me and Ethan kind of talked about in that recaps yesterday, seems like that's going to be a little bit of the reality of this season. So we got to take our wins where we can. This definitely wasn't the prettiest game for the Spurs, and it wasn't the prettiest game for the Clippers either. I just want to say that to start. And obviously, when it's hard to put back-to-back shooting nights together that are as well as the Clippers had in the game on Monday, and of course in the other game that they played against us at the beginning of the season where they beat us by 40. So they were definitely missing some shots tonight, which definitely helped the Spurs out and keep in a minute. But at the same time, there were a lot of improvements that I saw from the team overall. A lot of that has to do with Devin Vassell being back. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to be in the starting lineup, and Malachi wasn't able to make a shot tonight. But even with that being said, I didn't notice Malachi doing a ton bad. Obviously, there's still some sophomore things defensively that he's just not there yet. But overall, when we talk about the beginning of this game, right, Spurs started 3 for 21. So the fact that they were able to get back in this game was definitely a positive sign. And they let the Clippers kind of gain another lead. In the third quarter, it felt like things were slipping away, and they were able to hold on just a little bit. And that's kind of when I felt like the fourth quarter collapse that we saw in that Grizzlies game was going to happen again. But we ended up winning the fourth quarter, 32-27. Obviously, weren't able to get the W, which is the main next step for this team, getting over the hump. But it was nice to see them move back to kind of that Miami Heat range that we saw whenever it comes to just the way that we played the game, and the Kings game a little bit as well. Here's what Victor has to say: A+ effort for sure. That's what we gotta. Those are the things that at this point in the season, that from what we've been seeing, we got to be happy with, and just hope that they can continue to build on this stuff and break through. I don't know if you guys heard Keldon's post game from the last game, and then also the Devin pregame from this one, but I mean, these guys still seem pretty adamant. They feel like they can turn it around. Like, they're talking about them starting to win. They're saying when we win. And we'll see how far that is down the line. And I'm not changing my tune when I bring this up from what we've said the past 2 days. But I am just saying that, these guys definitely haven't lost their belief. And they feel like they can get some things right and make some of these games more competitive. I think last week, or no, not last week, because me and Ethan had a hiatus last week, but the one before that, the last post game that we did, we had mentioned that we felt like, if we lose games like this, it's definitely not as bad as the game on Monday. There's definitely still some things to fix. There's some plays we could have made in this one, but man, when you look at Victor, I haven't talked about him, and I should have already, because he had 15 boards tonight. And that's such a good thing to see when you consider at the beginning of the season that, we had games where he only had 2 to 3 boards. That's something that, with his length, obviously he's going to continue to get better at. We saw one that I know a lot of people on our team thought was a foul late in the game when he went up. I think it was around like the 3 or 2 minute mark, and he had a bunch of Clippers around him, and he just lost the ball after he had it in his hands. And like I said, a lot of the guys thought that was a foul, but at the same time, that's the type of stuff that down the line, when he gets a couple years of muscle on him, those are going to be, immediate putback dunks. I'm going to get to some of y'all's comments here. We got Adrian. He says, "How much do we miss Chip tonight? That was a brutal opening to the game." Absolutely. Right. And so the fact that they were able to play through it and get back on track a little bit still was not a great shooting night from three at 28%. But luckily, the Clippers only hit 9 threes themselves. But those are the little things, like I said, that you got to take. But yeah, it really feels like we've been missing Chip this season, Adrian. Bude says, "Old man Pop done lost his mind." I know that's how a lot of y'all feel. Let's see what Adrian says here. Pop in the post-game press conference right now says, "You don't poke the bear. he wouldn't elaborate and would cut off reporters looking for clarification. Was that the last post game, Adrian, or was that this one that just happened? Obviously, there was the moment tonight where he took the mic when all of the fans were doing what they do to Kawhi and told them to be quiet, and that just kind of fueled the fire. So if that's what he's referencing, that'll be interesting. But oh my gosh, I see some other things you guys are talking about in here. TLGS Services says, I tried to listen to Pop's instructions and coaching, but I still lost in life. I'm now 0-1 under Pop this year. I mean, I get y'all's frustrations, but you can't take away the all-time wins record, and you can't take away the 5 championships. Bude says the league better recognize who the future is and give Wemby superstar calls. Yeah, I was having a frustrating part with myself, or a conversation with myself late in the game when Keldon got a little ticky-tack foul. It still was, I get why they called it, but it was, ticky-tack on Harden. And I was just like, this guy's never won a championship, man. Every time he goes to the playoffs, he's never able to get over the hump. He's been on multiple different teams with multiple different superstars, and we're giving him this treatment still. It just frustrated me. That was a little thought I had. But here's what Adrian says. He says it was tonight on League Pass. Okay, so that was probably the pregame interview. Interesting. Well, I mean, I guess he was pissed off because we saw what he did when he grabbed the mic tonight. That was something I had never seen. Not Wemby says they played well. They still need to look for Wemby more, though, for sure. There was one play earlier in the first half. I'm not sure if it was the first or the second quarter. I think it was the second quarter where he was just like wide open under the rim, and Keldon gave a dump off to Zach, and it was like, yeah, it could have been a shot, but okay, Adrian, thank you for saying post game. So that was tonight. Very interesting. We'll have to see what he says in the next one, if he says much at all. But that is definitely something to keep an eye on. I lost my train of thought there. I was talking about Wembanyama looking for the ball. There we go. Jeremy had a dump off to Zach, like right at the top of the key, and it was like for like 3-4 seconds before then, Wemby had been wide open in the paint, and it's like if you dipped it to him, that was going to be an easy dunk. So yeah, that's definitely something that they still need to work on. But the one thing I really liked from Jeremy tonight is he did not have a pretty start to the game. You could tell he was frustrated. He got cooked by Kawhi on like 3 straight possessions, but he kept playing. And he ended up having a really big fourth quarter that was huge, for the team getting back in and winning that fourth quarter, even though they didn't pull out the win overall. And then, of course, I'm kind of all over the place because, of course, it's a solo one, guys. But my boy Dom Barlow, he got some rotation minutes tonight. I couldn't believe it. We actually saw the Victor Wembanyama, Dominic Barlow front court tonight. It was like, I mean, I know it's not even Thanksgiving. Speaking of which, I hope y'all all have an awesome Thanksgiving tomorrow, if you celebrate it. But that was like an early Christmas present for me, seeing that with Dom Barlow. Now, I will admit, in the third quarter, he got caught on some rotations, and that did kind of allow them to get a little bit of a big lead when I really felt like the game was over and we weren't going to come back into it, which is another reason why I felt good about tonight. But early in the game, when we were down, he was a big part of kind of the comeback. Well, I say a big part. It was just he was a part of the lineup that kind of got us back to single digits in the second quarter. So I'll admit, like I said, DA Gaming, he said we lost this game in the third when Barlow came in. Well, I don't know if you were watching the second quarter, but you should have seen when he brought us back in I say he, but when that lineup was actually the lineup that was out there that got us back into single digits. But yeah, no, definitely got caught on some rotations there in the third quarter for sure. But I'm just, if you've been watching this channel for a while, you know that Dom Barlow is kind of like Ethan's equivalent to Drew Eubanks when he was here. They're not superstar players. They're kind of fringe role players, but we have a love affair with them. Pause. Anyways, our man Emperor says it's kind of annoying how impatient some of the fellow Spurs fans are, even since we got Wemby. Yeah, I think me and Ethan are in that boat with you, Emperor, but we're all Spurs fans, so we gotta talk it out. We still gotta talk to each other. We may have differences of opinions, but it's okay. We're all in here, experiencing this ride together. JR Carr says, always been a Pop fan, but it's not his place to tell the fans who paid hard earned money not to boo, especially when they're booing a guy who pretty obviously quit on the Spurs. Yeah, it's tough because on one side, it's 7 years ago. So it's like maybe we should, give him a little bit of a break. But on the flip side, like whenever he went and did that, I knew I was like, this is only going to make them boo louder. This is only going to make them cheer louder now when he misses. But the one thing I did have that same thought, JR, as much as like whether you disagree with it or agree with it, like the people did pay the money to be there, so they should kind of be able to allow, like if they're gonna boo, like regardless of what you think of it, like they paid the money to be there, so they kind of should be, in my opinion at least. I feel like they should be allowed to. Now, whether I agree with that or not is a different story, but I'm just saying that uh, you paid your money, you should be allowed to do it what you want to do. Too Clutch Corey says, good effort. Never expected to win versus the Clippers. They're too savvy. Teams like that are going to teach our guys a lot. For sure. We're definitely learning a lot of lessons. Like I mentioned, our boy Sohan, despite the great fourth quarter he had, as much as we've raved about his defense, and I still believe in his defensive potential moving forward, at the same time, there were a lot of defensive lessons that I think our boy Jeremy learned tonight. But getting back just into the game a little bit, I'm going to get back to y'all's comments here in a second. We can talk about Devin. It took him a little bit to get going, but was able to make some clutch shots late. You still noted, the last time that he went out, I talked about how you really notice the difference when he's on the court and when he's not. Probably the worst example of that would be like the Knicks game, but he also only played 12 minutes. Otherwise, there's been times where, you noticed it tonight, not just with his scoring, but his defensive rotations, his communication, his on-court leadership. I think that definitely, there's a lot of stuff that, even though his stat sheet wasn't bad tonight, besides the shooting percentage, but, it makes sense considering he hasn't played in a little bit. There's a lot of stuff that Devin does leadership-wise for the team, and I think communication-wise, whether that's defensively or offensively, that really, like, that doesn't show up on the stat sheet, but really makes an impact out there. And that was another thing that he mentioned in the pregame presser as well. He was talking about how he feels like that is kind of his role this season. He is the guy who steps up and talks in those moments. So I think, that it translates in the sense that this game was much closer. And when it felt like the game was slipping away, both times, the Spurs were able to find a way back in it. But at the same time, I got to tell y'all something hilarious. So I was texting Ethan tonight. He's back with the family, drove back there tonight. So shout out to Ethan, as always. He told me, he goes, Jude, we're going to get it to single digits. This is like late in the third quarter, right? Or actually, this is midway in the third quarter when they were starting to pull away. He's like, we're going to come back. We're going to make it single digits, and then we're going to ultimately lose. So even though Ethan is not with us here tonight, just know that he read this game perfectly, even though he wasn't even watching it. He was hanging out with his family, texting me that, and he predicted it to a T. So Ethan's got to know something, right, guys? Another thing that I like to see here on the stat sheet, Keldon, maybe not, not the best shooting night, right? There's still some shots that you would have liked him to make, and really everybody didn't have like a super efficient shooting night. The best one, it was Victor and Zach had the most efficient shooting nights for the team tonight. But those 7 assists from Keldon, that's another theme that I've seen this season. Not obviously not every game, but he's had a couple of those 6-7 assist games. His playmaking has really taken, a jump in this new role. There's a couple times where I've seen him look for Wemby as well throughout the year, and I saw that tonight too. So shout out to Keldon for his playmaking. And yeah, that's another positive in this 10-game losing streak. We got to take the little things that we've seen. And I felt like Jeremy at first didn't start off. And maybe, I wasn't really following the stats on the box score while I was watching the game. I was just watching it. So maybe he did have assists throughout the game, but to me, it seemed like that was later in the game. So that was another thing that I like to see from him, in the sense that, like I said, with the way that he kind of struggled to open, the fact that he was able to get back into that role and play through it and continue to just, be mentally tough and play through it, despite, Kawhi getting you on pump fakes on like 3 straight possessions. So like I said, that was just kind of goes with the offensive point as well. I was glad to see him continue to play and improve on those things, even though they didn't start the prettiest. Trying to think about where I want to go next here. Victor obviously went 7 for 7 at the free throw line, had 22 tonight. But still, you'd probably like to see him take some more shots, especially when he had it going a couple times. Had 3 blocks as well, so that's going to be something that we'll continue to watch this season. He's probably going to end up at least in that 2.5 to 3 block range, which, obviously he's 7'4", but still at the same time, for a rookie to do that is pretty remarkable, despite the Spurs situation right now. Trey had an interesting game tonight. If you look at the stat sheet, it doesn't look that great. He did have those 3 steals. I would say offensively, it wasn't one of his best games, but I really did see, and I'm kind of interested how I didn't see him as much later in the game. I'm just kind of thinking about that. But I really did see a difference from him defensively tonight. Not saying that it was perfect. There were still a couple times where Westbrook got him on some shots, but me and Ethan were really kind of criticizing that in the SSPN recaps last night. So I really wanted to say that, hey, Trey, like, I don't know if he heard it. I doubt he did. But if he did, he definitely responded to it, regardless of whether he heard it or not, because he came out and played better defensively tonight. Not perfect, but an improvement from what I've seen so far, especially considering the matchup and some of the steals that he got on. He got one on Kawhi. I believe he got one on Harden as well. So good to see from Trey there. Getting back to some of y'all's comments here. Here we go. And that's pretty much it for the box score. Bude says, wonder what Pops thinks when the ref make a bad call and the fans start booing. Hey, I can't disagree with you there, Bude. I can't disagree with you there. TLGS services. Barlow earned 1 XP from this game. Great success. That's not really necessarily what I was trying to say. But I really did see some good things from him, at least mainly in that second quarter, but even in the third quarter as well. That was more in the Wembanyama Barlow lineup, so that definitely helps a lot. But really, in that second quarter, I challenge y'all to go back and watch that. And I mean, that was when we were down 17, and then we made our comeback in. Was Trey, Devin, Keldon, Dominic, and then Jeremy as well. So that was very interesting lineup. Let's see. Million Gnu says Jeremy was showing some pretty good leadership qualities late in the game. Looks like he's growing for sure. That's kind of the point that I was trying to hit on when I came to when I was talking about his assists and his points tonight. It was not pretty to start, but we saw it in the fourth quarter. And the fact that he played through it, that just ties back into another point that Ethan and I have talked about, which is this team being mentally tough. Like that's kind of the next step that they need to do. At least right now. And I'm sure they'll have some setbacks as the season progresses. You never know what can happen with injuries as well. We know what that does to this team, but a fully healthy Spurs team, it was good to see that improvement, and hopefully we can continue to see it, but probably that won't happen because injuries are inevitable in the NBA. Too Clutch Clory says, I like Barlow. He's fundamentally sound. I completely agree. There's obviously some things that he's going to have to learn, but he's not going to learn them without having those struggles in the NBA. And I mean, you could criticize that a little bit, but let's go back to last season, and you could say the same thing about some of the other guys. You could say that it's only a 1 XP game, in some of the things last season, and there were definitely still things that they took away and learned. JR Carr says, second game in a row where Wemby gets Westbrook in the post and then bails him out. Yeah. That knee, the thing where his knee hit the ball and he hurt him. And I think we ended up, I don't know if we got a turnover there, but it's just, that's the ball fake thing, man. And I saw a lot less of those tonight from the team overall. So that was good to see. And I saw a lot less of those from Wemby. This might've been the last, even though it still happened. This might've been the least amount of ball fakes that I've seen Wemby jump on in the game. So that was good. And this is what I was talking about earlier. DA Gaming says, anyone notice how Wemby has improved his rebounding? And tonight he is super patient in his shot selection. Yeah, there were still a couple, I think, that might have been quick, but overall, I did notice the patience tonight as well. You didn't see as many just pull up threes in transition or pull up jumpers. And they were doing their best to get it to him in the post. Still not as much, as they need to, as we've kind of talked about earlier. But that's that's going to be an ongoing process the whole season. Here's what Adrian says: "I love you, Pop, but I'll act like a child and boo harder if asked not to boo." That was exactly my point when I said, like, you're fueling the fire, man. Like, not only is that San Antonio's personality to a T, like doing that, but then if you tell them not to, mixed with a little alcohol, it was only gonna get worse. He just added fuel to the fire. Pop was being Pop, always having his values, but yeah, that only made it worse. And I'm not sure if he was aware of that when he said that. Um, right, right. And this is what JR says. I agree with this. Still booing Kawhi at this point is cringe in your opinion, but it's booing, like, nothing too serious. And also, like you said earlier, like, as much as what you think about it, like, regardless, like, those people paid to be there. So, like, they, I mean, it's a basketball game. People are going to boo, people are going to cheer. So I kind of feel like they should be allowed to too. But I get people's frustration and I get people's annoyance with it. But it's also like, they paid to be there. It's kind of the bottom line. Too Clutch Corey says, you could see improvements through our 3 games with them, especially tonight. Right, right. Wizard 8000 says, Pop worries more about Kawhi's feelings than coaching his team. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. We'll move on to the next one. Callow5 says, here's something to think about. If Kawhi gets his jersey retired in SA, it's going to be kind of awkward. I had never thought about that. That would be an interesting reception, to say the least. Let's see. Victor says, Friday we could see Trey Jones start ahead of Sohan because of the speed of Curry. Trey would be the only one that would be able to keep up with Curry. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. I get what you're trying to say, but until proven otherwise, I think we're going to start Jeremy for the whole season just because Pop said that we would. So let's see. July 26 says, at least we didn't get blown out today, Jude. Exactly. That was kind of how I opened this one up. I know some of y'all might be getting in here later, but y'all can check out a little bit of earlier in the show because that's why I'm in a much better mood. It's definitely not perfect, but at the same time, it's still much better than Monday. You got to take these minimal improvements where we've seen them. So I think overall, when I look at tonight, the mental toughness, that was what I saw, in a multitude of different areas, overall in the team, but also individually in guys. We saw Devin's impact even when he comes off the bench. And I believe, let me go back and look at the box score. Still got 27 minutes, even though he came off the bench. So he actually ended up getting more minutes than Malachi. And that's another good thing to see because we saw the last time he came off the bench in that Knicks game, he only got like 12 minutes. He was on a minutes restriction. So it was good to see that even though he didn't get, his normal, he'll probably get like 35, something like that. Maybe that's a little high, but y'all get what I'm saying. It'll be higher than 27 moving forward for Devin, but it was good to see that he played that many. He played starter level minutes coming off that injury. So hopefully on Friday, we'll see him in the starting lineup. But his impact, we saw that with his leadership. I think that ties into the mental toughness points earlier, but also it just ties into the on-court point. I talked about rotations earlier. Obviously, the shots that he made. Devin's a bucket getter. That clutch 3 late, despite, the result. And I didn't even really think that even when he hit that, I didn't really think that we were going to win, but it's still, those are the type of tough shots that Devin makes. I was talking about this earlier. JR says, nice to see an efficient game from Wemby. Should have very easily had another 6 to 8 points. That play where Jeremy missed him wide open under the basket was brutal. Yes. And that's why I was glad to see him make some assists later, but still, those are the ones like that's just a free 2 points. And Zach still tried to get it to him, but it was just, it was a little too late. And yes, Hanover, I did see Pop address the crowd. You can scroll back a little bit in the live where I talked about it earlier. But yeah, that was just crazy in general because that never happens. It makes sense, when you think about Pop's personality and it being 7 years ago, but at the same time, when he went and did that, I was like, dude, this is not good. They're just going to go harder now. And of course, that's what they did. Okay, and here's what JR says. I'm referring to Westbrook defending Wemby in the post. Wemby faded away Monday night and passed the ball tonight. Wasn't double teamed either. He's a kid, so he'll learn though. Yeah, okay. Thank you for clarifying that earlier. Obviously I got that wrong, but I know exactly what you're talking about right now because there was that one late in the game where he had Westbrook behind him and Sean Elliott was like, why did he pass off? Like that's where you have to go. And that's the same thing where I talked about in transition, even though that's a post up, it's the same principle whenever it came to the Monday transition pull up jumper in front of Terrence Mann. So both of those little guys, it seemed like from what Sean said, he must have just not even realized that Westbrook was on him. But still, those are some things you got to feel out. But like you said, he's 19. He's going to learn. Those are things that he's going to learn over time for sure. Hanover says he was thinking of wearing his Kawhi Leonard jersey tonight. Oh my gosh. And Too Clutch Clory says it's about the culture and the image of our team, though. Yeah, and that's why I said I get people being frustrated with it, and it's also just like I said, it's Pop trying to, they want every aspect of what they do, and it's because and that's part of what's made them so successful over the years, to be in line with their culture. But just to be real, not every San Antonian is living life by the Spurs values. That's how I'll put it. And like I said, when they're out there turnt, and they got a little something in their cup, that it only ignited the fuel, Let's see. Victor says the fight and the energy tonight was A++. Drummer Seb says if what we saw tonight can be replicated, we are going to win more. And that's kind of what I was talking about earlier, or referencing earlier with the adamancy of Keldon and Devin, and they just really feel confident despite this losing streak that they're going to be able to turn this thing around. That was the verbiage that Devin used today in his pregame. And try to just get over this hump, because there's some things that, that we have seen stretches. And I mentioned this in the SSPN recaps with Ethan yesterday. It's a tough dichotomy, because we have seen stretches of the team, being able to, go on like significant runs where they just dominate a game. But, it goes back to what we've been saying this whole season. It's a 48-minute game. And it's also, sometimes a 2 to 3 minute game when you're in a really close one down the stretch, and that's the solution to getting over the hump in these clutch moments is just playing more reps together in an actual live, high intensity reps. And there's going to be a lot of losses that come with that. Hey, Jude Ramirez, somebody else with my name. Devin has been trying his best, for sure, my guy. I appreciate you being in here, Jude. It's nice to share a fellow name with somebody. I've actually I know there's other Judes out there, but this is like the first time I've interacted with another one. So shout out to you, my guy. Let me say, here's what a hi says. LOL, it's who we are. And Adrian. Oh my goodness. I can't even bring that one up. But, if it would be interesting if we had a point guard like him. I'll leave it at that. Hanover says, why didn't my boy Champagne play? Well, that was because we had Devin back. So we put Malachi in the starting lineup. I saw somebody else earlier in the comments saying feels like Malachi's taken a step back. I understand why you feel that way, and it does look like that on the court, but I just feel like that just has to do with his role and Wembanyama. Like, it's not the same as last year. Now, with that being said, we haven't really seen him get to his spots as much, but he's just going to have to play through his role. And he was in a different role tonight, not to make complete excuses for him, because he has struggled more this season. But I think that's the nature of the situation. JR says, are we still in the period Pop described where he's just observing Victor and seeing what we have? Yes. Short answer. He's so freaking talented, and it's scary pondering what he'll be capable of with elite coaching. For sure. Yeah, I think that's going to be for a while. I'm not sure. I don't know. You never know with Pop. He may not like officially tell us when that happens. But I from the first comment that he made, uh, it really seemed like it was going to be like a couple months. Um, so maybe it'll only be 1 or 2. Well, now that we think about it, we're basically a month into the season, so I would think it's going to be like 2 or so. Um, I guess, but like I said, I don't really know. But to me, as of right now, he hasn't said anything different, and there's still times where we're out there, and it feels like that. Um, so as far as I know, no, he has not changed that. July says, think we'll beat Golden State. We match up with them good in the preseason. Yeah, I just don't think so, unfortunately. I know that Golden State hasn't had the best start to the year, but I just think that they're just gonna have too many stars that I just think and that are gonna take advantage of our mistakes. I think I will say. I mean, I don't know. It's tough with this team because we've had so much inconsistency this year. I want to believe that we're gonna put another performance together like the one that we saw tonight, and that it'll be competitive again at least. But I haven't really been shown that yet, so I can't really bet on that. Like I'm saying, there's obviously the players believe that they can do that, but we're gonna have to go out there and see it because we got kind of the same message in the preseason media day as well. Yeah, but I think guys, I'm gonna wrap this one up. I appreciate you guys being here. Me and Ethan should be back with a post game this weekend. I'm not sure which game we're gonna do. I don't think it'll be the Golden State game. But if there is, let me look at the schedule here real quick. But we've talked about it. So it should be me and Ethan at some point this weekend. We have Denver on Sunday, so be on the lookout for Denver on Sunday. I don't think that we'll do Golden State on Friday. Maybe we will. There could be a chance for that, but since it's a 9 o'clock game, I probably doubt that we will do that one. But I appreciate you guys hanging out with me tonight, really, for show. It's another solo one, so thank y'all for hanging out. Y'all really make these solo post games, so really appreciate it for sure. Don't forget to hit that like and that subscribe button if you enjoyed the content tonight. And if you want to stay updated with all the SSPN stuff, be sure to follow us on Twitter at SSPN on YT, at Jude McLaren, and at Ethan_Quintero. We appreciate you guys. We'll catch you on the next one. Go Spurs, go.